Get two looks from one design when you use blending brushes versus brayers. Welcome to another episode of Color Connection with Amber, where I use the colors from the current month's Inspiration Challenge to create cards. Enter your projects into the Inspiration Challenge with the link below, and while you're there, be sure to like and subscribe. I have three inks here, Sweet Leaf, Magenta, and Sapphire inks, similar to the colors that I used in the last Color Connection episode. If you missed that, I'll link that in the top right-hand corner or at the end of this video. And I have a piece of A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 Nina Classic Crust Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I've masked off 1/2 inch all the way around the card with some post-it tape, and I'm rolling my brayer onto the Sweet Leaf ink pad. Now, because this is a felt ink pad, there's a lot of great texture on the ink pad that transfers to the brayer and then subsequently to your project. So even though this background is going to be one layer, it's going to appear like it has a ton of texture, the texture of the felt fabric pad, which is really quite cool. Now, if you are going for more of a smooth texture, then what you might want to do is actually press your ink pad onto your work surface and then roll your brayer through that, and you'd get a smoother transfer of ink. You could also put the ink pad on like a gel press and pick up your ink that way as well. I quite like the texture. That's what I was going for, was the texture. And so I'm just going to clean off my brayer with a baby wipe in between applications of ink. I'll just clean up the ink from my glass mat, and the next color that I'm going to use is magenta. And you gotta have to be a little bit careful when you are putting green and pink or red next to each other. They can turn brown. In this particular application, because there's still kind of some white space and some texture in there, it turned out just fine. It didn't really turn brown or turn to mud or anything like that. But you do want to be careful when you put reds and pinks next to green or on top of green. Just something to be aware of since they're complementary colors. So I'm rolling a little more of the magenta than the green because I like that color better, and I want to make sure that the magenta and the sapphire overlap. So we went ahead and cleaned the brayer. I'm just rolling this on again, and we'll put the sapphire on. Sapphire is one of my new favorite colors, you guys. It's gorgeous. It is such a pretty blue, and I don't think I use it often enough. That's one of the things that I really like about the Inspiration Challenge is it forces me to use color combinations that maybe I wouldn't necessarily use. Our design team comes up with the color combinations. They actually take the photos themselves the month that they're hosting it, and they come up with the color combinations based on their photo. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you look in the left-hand corner on the bottom, it looked like the blue was a little bit wet, and you can see it has just a touch of a softer look. So I thought maybe that was because the brayer was still wet. So I thought I would spray some water under the brayer and see if I can soften any other areas. There was some minor softening, but that didn't really work. So you could totally skip that step. If you wanted to soften up some of the texture of the ink, what I would recommend is spraying the brayer with a very light mist before you bring it to the cardstock. And you'll be able to soften up those inks. So I'm just pulling away the masking tape, and we've got a great background started here. So loads of texture from the felt pads of the ink pads and just great colors. I really like it. It's nice and vibrant. So I'm going to put that aside so it can dry. It got a little bit wet with the water that I rolled over it. And I've masked off the left side and the bottom of another A2 size card panel here. I'm going to go ahead and put Sweet Leaf at the bottom. This time I am going to split up the pink and the green because with the ink blending, I think there might be more of a chance for it to turn a little bit brown or a little bit muddy because I'm going to overlap them a little bit more. And it's going to be more solid color. I'm using one of the small ink blending tools here because I didn't mask off the right side or the top, but I want to make sure that I don't go past that 1 inch mark. What I've masked off here is 1 inch on the left and the bottom. I wanted to have a sharp line on the left and a really soft airbrush looking line on the right, or not really a line, just kind of like fading off into white. Not really a look that I normally do or go for. I don't so much do asymmetric things like that usually, but I thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to come in with just a little bit more sweet leaf down here at the bottom, and then we'll move on to magenta. I do end up going a little bit past 1 inch on the right hand side. So what I would suggest is that you make a mark on your masking tape at the 1 inch mark, just so that you don't go too far past your mark. When you're ink blending, it's a little bit like loading up your eyeshadow brush. You want to tap it off before you bring it to your eye. Otherwise, you're going to get this huge blob of dark eyeshadow or whatever color you're using. Same thing with your dark inks. You want to tap that off on your work surface before you bring it to your paper. That's going to avoid getting those big blobs of a darker color in just one spot, and it's going to give you a really nice blend. If you remember back to the green, I didn't really do that with the green. I don't find that it's as necessary with your lighter colors as it is with your strong colors. Like this sapphire and magenta are pretty strong colors, so I'm tapping off the majority of the color before I bring it to the card, and I get a really super soft blend that way. Okay, it's time to peel off the tape, and the big reveal is always so fun. We've got this really perfect crisp line down the left and on the bottom, and then you can see it just blends off to white on the right side and the top. So really different look for me, but I do like how it's looking. Here I have the Darling Lily stamp set, and this is a 3x4 stamp set, which is an unusual size for Altenew, but they do have a few of these. If you go on their website, you can search by size and you can find a couple of the other ones. But this is super cute. It's the Darling Lily stamp set, which I like because it's a good size to color, and I'm actually not going to color it today, which is also weird for me. But not everybody loves to color, so I do like to give you guys some options. And then it also has 4 sentiments that go along with it. So I'm stamping it in obsidian pigment ink, and I'm just going to keep it just like this. The background on both of these cards is going to create the color for us, so I don't feel there's a real big need to color the flower. I was having trouble deciding what sentiment I wanted to use. I was thinking about the cards that I already have in my stash, and then also looking at what fits the space better. So the best way to do that is just use your packaging and lay it over the area and see what fits best. Ended up going with Hello Dear Friend. I'll stamp that in black, and at this point I thought this card was done, but I do end up adding some splatter to this later. So I have the other background. I went ahead and stamped the lily again on white cardstock and cut it out, and I felt like it just got really lost on the textured background, so I went ahead and white embossed it on black cardstock and cut that out, and I much prefer that. I have the Essential Cinnamon Strips die here, and I went ahead and cut Just Because in half. And now I have my trusty jet black ink spray, because if you've followed me for any amount of time, you know that if I use black on a card, I generally like to see it in 3 different places. So we have the lily, the sentiment. We also need some black splatter to go along with it. You could also do like black enamel dots or sequins or something like that, but I'm a big fan of the splatter. So you want to flick off the majority of it back into the bottle, then flick it in your trash can once before you bring it to your cardstock. That's going to help prevent any huge blobs kind of traveling down the straw and dropping onto your project. So tap it off in the bottle, 1 tap in the trash can, and then you should be good to go. What I'll do with these now is pop these up on some foam squares or foam tape, and then this will add a little bit of dimension to the card. I couldn't decide if I wanted my sentiments to be straight or a little bit askew. I ended up going with straight. I always have a hard time putting sentiment strips like kind of wonky on the card. I don't know, it makes me a little twitchy. What do you guys do? Do you like stacked sentiments that are wonky, or do you like them straight? Let me know in the comments down below. So here's the 2 cards, and I'm looking at it and I'm really trying to decide, do I add splatter to this clean and simple one or just leave it? It's so hard for me to look at a clean and simple card that I've made. I love other people's, but I can't leave this card like this. So I have to add the splatter. So tap it off in the trash can, and I'm totally regretting it, you guys. Like, I'm just like, why did I do that? Why? And then I do more. Like I can't help myself. So I stop here, thank goodness. And I think it looks okay. I can't decide though. Do you like it better without the splatter or with? I think I do like it with. Let me know. So I am totally digging the super sharp edge on one side and the ultra blended edge on the other. I think this is a super nice card. And then I totally love this texture too. And of course the black totally speaks to me, all of that high contrast black. I hope this was a good reminder that you don't have to overcomplicate your cards. You can get two very different looks from one design. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you soon with more inspiration.
Hello crafters, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching!